Hi everyone. Today we're looking at chapter 4 and we're beginning our look at software, which is kind of the whole point of having a computer in the first place. I mean, after all, without software, it just sits there. It doesn't do anything. We need a program for it to work on. Now, software is generally divided up into two major categories: system software and application software. And we're going to take a look at application software first. These are the things that allow you to get things done. This is task-oriented software. Application software helps make tasks easier that we've been doing for thousands, hundreds of years, like writing letters, keeping track of money. It also makes it possible to do things that we couldn't do at all until we had computers. Um, Back in the early days of smartphones, and having apps on them, people used to go around saying there's an app for that. And I mean, it's still true. It's a silly thing to be saying now, and nobody does it anymore, I hope. But it's true. There is an application to accomplish just about anything you might want to do. Now, we've got our productivity software that does practical things like help us to create documents, help us to manage numerical information, helps us to manage all kinds of information in the case of databases. Um, in other realms, we have applications that help us to learn things. We have applications that help us to play games. Um, for just about every type of hobby you might want to think about, there's probably some kind of application software. I personally have an application, not on a smartphone, but on my desktop computer, that helps me to design bead weaving. I also have one that helps me to design cloth weaving. If there's a way to put it into a computerized form, somebody will find a way and will do it. And, hopefully they'll make a few bucks off it for their effort. But yeah, application software is, as I say, task oriented. And there's a few things that we want to think about when we're thinking about application software. The first one is the concept of cloud computing. Now, it used to be that everything you did was stored on the computer that you worked on. Okay? So when you worked on a document, you stored it on your computer. Uh, you weren't even necessarily needing to be connected up to the internet while you were working on that document. Nowadays, we have so much need for storage that we've started subscribing to cloud accounts. Microsoft offers them, Apple offers them, a lot of different companies offer cloud storage. As a matter of fact, just today I I was reading the paper and here this was in the funnies. The ambiance up here has really changed now that everyone's data is stored in the cloud. Uh, it's kind of silly, and of course, it's not really a cloud. I think everybody knows that by now. It's just lots and lots of servers, positioned in, server facilities. The bigger they are and the more powerful the servers, then the more elaborate the facilities, because then you start having needs for climate control and, protection from sabotage and all that sort of thing. But basically, servers are just big banks of computers that store information. But since you can access it anywhere that you have access to the internet, which is pretty much everywhere now. Uh, Even Wi-Fi on airplanes has gotten ubiquitous, although poor quality and often expensive. Um, yeah, I fly as often as I can afford to go someplace, and if they ask me to pay for Wi-Fi, I never do. You know, I try and fly the, class that you get it automatically, but even when you get it automatically, it usually sucks. But that's beside the point. We want to be connected all the time because we want to be connected to the services that we want to use, and we want to be connected to the information that we have stored via cloud connections. So cloud computing has made it possible for us to exceed the limits of the equipment that we have. Okay? Which brings up another subject, and that is software as a service. In the olden days, yeah, I'm sorry, I had to say it that way. Um, in the olden days, when you bought software, you went to Best Buy or Office Depot or, all the stores that we used to be able to buy software at, and you bought a box off the shelf, and it had disks in it that you installed your software from. Nowadays, if you actually purchase your own licensed copy of software, it's unlikely that you're ever going to see a disk. You're going to download it off of a server. Now, for fully installed software, that's still your licensed copy. But the idea of being able to sell software via the internet has made it possible for people that produce software to consider changing the way they offer it. And that is what has given rise to software as a service. Now, sometimes you see it as SAS, sometimes you see it as SaaS. It's all the same thing. It means that instead of buying your own discrete copy of a piece of software, you subscribe to that software. Now, you can subscribe for a certain period of time. Sometimes they sell an indefinite license, but then you have to pay for upgrades. It just depends on how the provider wants to offer it. Um, Office 365 is a classic example of that. You subscribe to the service. As long as you subscribe to it, you get all the updates. This is great. Um, to be honest, Office 365 does not have all of the full features that you would get for a fully installed individual license for Office 2019, which is why for this class, you're going to need Office 2019 because Office 365 won't cut it. But you don't have to pay for it. You get it for free through a licensing agreement with the college. So you don't have to worry about that. No money needs to be spent on your part for that. But the beauty of this system for the software providers, for the people that provide this software, is that selling software in this way enables them to really curtail what used to be a really bad problem with software, and that was piracy. When you purchased software on a disk, you usually got this code that you had to enter when you were installing the software. And there was very little to stop you letting somebody else use that disk and that code. Now, usually in the early days, there was nothing to stop you. As they got a little bit as they got a little bit smarter about it, they started encoding the disks so that you could only install it a certain number of times using that license number or license code or whatever it was that came on with it. Now, you were licensed to install that software on a certain number of machines. Sometimes it was just one, depending on how they were selling it. But usually it was more than one because most people have more than one machine that they want to run their software on. But that was how they were trying to prevent piracy, but there were lots of ways to get around it. And even today in the United States, as much as a third of the software that is installed on standalone computers these days is pirated. Now, that's pretty good actually, because outside of the United States, the numbers are even more horrific. There are a number of places in the world where they have a very, very lax attitude towards piracy of all kinds of media. It doesn't matter whether it's, streaming media, physical media for music or videos or whatever. Street markets, you can just buy blatantly pirated copies of anything you care to mention, in some countries. And I'm not going to mention names because that could be potentially libelous. So I won't go there. But anyway, software as a service has made it possible for some of these companies to, as I say, really curtail some of these problems with piracy. Now let's look at some of the things that you can get as software as a service. Yeah, classically Microsoft Office 365, which brings us to our next topic, business software. Okay. An important component of application software. Office 365, Microsoft Office Online, the 2019 Office Suite that you can install on a physical machine. All of this is very important. Um, the productivity suites are the big thing in business software. However, these are general purpose types of software. They're meant to be used by many different industries. There is a lot of industry specific software out there, which brings us to another type of business software called vertical market software. This is designed for a particular industry, say the real estate market, and it's designed to support that market from the ground up. All aspects of that market should be covered in a vertical market software package, whereas something like Office 365 or Microsoft Office is much more general purpose. Um, what you're looking for is something that is customized enough to support the specific needs of your business. Okay. Creative software. This I wish I were a more creative person because it would be really exciting to take advantage of a lot of these kinds of applications. Unfortunately, I'm not, which you can tell from the quality of my videos here, but we weren't all made for that kind of creativity. I'm pretty good at execution in a lot of areas, but using creative software is not necessarily one of them. But application software has made creative people able to do so much. Now, all of these that I have listed here are free to use creative apps, and therefore creating content on the web. And there is so much out there, and there's so many people doing such amazing things with this software that is completely free to use. And I find it so inspiring. I mean, I do a little bit, what little I can, and, enough to be able to present material to you, and hopefully you guys can go even farther with this. But these kind of apps have made it possible for and I shouldn't say the word deluge, but I mean, it is kind of applicable because there's just so much out there, so many people doing so many creative things with all of this software that is available to you. And it's astonishing to see what all is out there. And it's all thanks to the cloud. Now, personal use software, the things that we all use every day, um, these encompass, maybe creative apps that you use for your hobbies, the apps that you use for communication, your own, well, I mean, just social media apps that you use to access the things that people are putting out there on TikTok and Instagram and all of those social media apps. The creative apps create the content, and then we use the personal use software to access it. It's all out there, and new stuff is coming out every day. And it's very exciting to me to see, new things popping up all the time. I'm, one of the very minor users of social media, but I enjoy what I do access out there, and I admire some of the things that people have done. So next time we're going to be talking about, I won't say the boring part, but the utilitarian part of software, which is system software. So until then, I'll see you in the next video. Good, agus